Obviously, I'm a huge fan of remote work, but it is not for everyone. So let's talk about what that actually means. The perks are really that good. I want to start with the perks because let's get excited. Pretty easy to see some of them here. No commute. You're spending less money on work clothes and gas. Today, I wanted to put on this fancy furry vest because it's cold outside and it's winter, and I think this is the only time I can wear it is really inside when it's not raining. And I could do that because I don't have to go to work. Right? I did put on pants. Hope that's not too much information there. But really, I'm not spending money on work clothes, and I love that. And I'm certainly not spending money on gas because I'm not really going anywhere. In fact, I go to a co-working space that's right down the way, and I bike to it or walk. So flexible schedules. Not all remote work has flexible schedules, but one of the things that's really cool about remote work is that some of these organizations, because they've chosen to allow remote work, start to be more flexible about when work gets done. So for example, the company that I do remote work for right now, I'm a part-time remote worker, their whole staff, whether they're remote or not, doesn't need to be in the office from a 9 to 5. If you want to be a 10 to 7, that's fine. If you want to be a 7 to 3 because you've got kids to pick up, fine. Right? And it's because a lot of these companies are embracing the new world of work. The idea that we're not in this traditional 9 to 5, you do your best work at those times. They understand that work can be done at all different times. We have the technology to support it. And in fact, remote workers are incredibly motivated people. They're not over here not doing work and collecting a check. In fact, remote workers tend to be more motivated because they have the perk of being remote and working without distractions. So flexible schedules is certainly part of it. Less distraction, I just mentioned. If you're in an open office space, we've heard a lot about open office spaces recently and the distractions that happens when coworkers come up, or maybe someone's eating something next to you on the desk and you hear the crinkling, or you can smell it. I mean, these are real distractions. And so being able to set yourself up in an environment that's yours, that you work well in, is a real perk to the remote work lifestyle. Digital skills. A lot of times we hear about these amazing perks with, lifestyle and no commute. Really what you're getting to are extremely good digital skills and communication skills. You have to be a good communicator to be a remote worker because, you're not there. You don't know what is always happening. So you got to be able to ask the right questions. You can't be shy and, worry about asking questions. You have to be, you have to troubleshoot when things go wrong. And those require a lot of good communication skills, right? And, a lot of time we're connecting in digital environments, which means, someone writes something that maybe doesn't have the please and thank you on it. You can't take it as like, oh, oh, that hurt. Why aren't they being polite? You really have to be able to communicate in an effective manner, to succeed in a remote job. Digital skills, a lot of us remote workers, we're using things like Slack, obviously. We're using tools like Zoom, or in my case, Crowdcast, to communicate in meetings. We're using different platforms and software and databases and logins and like all of this stuff that, you might have at your job, but a lot of these companies are really built for the digital economy. And so you're building digital skills as you get jobs in some of these companies. So that's one of the perks that I really enjoyed in working as a remote worker. More times for friends and family. This one's actually kind of nice. I use this in the sense that summer's maybe my hardest time because it's glorious here and everything's, everyone's outside and stuff like that. And people will be like, hey, we got to go out. You got to go out. I'm going, to the river to go swimming today. And it's like 11 o'clock. And I'm like, I have a remote job. I actually have to work, but sometimes I have the flexibility in my schedule to go hang out on a river in the middle of the day because I know I can come back and do my work later. And again, that kind of depends on the organization that you're with, and their flexibility, but you do have more time for these people meaning friends and family. Forward-thinking companies. I say this in the way that a lot of these companies are experimenting with new styles of work. So in remote work, one of the things you're going to hear a lot of is distributed workforce. And that means that a company has a fully remote team. They are distributed all over. It doesn't matter. They could be in the US, they could be in another country. Sometimes it's a combination. These are forward-thinking companies who are writing the rule book on how to manage a remote workforce, how to raise up a company with all remote employees. And they're developing management styles and processes and systems that are really cutting edge. And if you find yourself in one of these companies, you're going to be working at the cutting edge. And that's kind of exciting. And then freedom from the cubicle or open workspace. I think I've already covered that one. All right, people who are fit for remote work. Self-motivated. Yeah. When your workspace is either in your home or maybe just down the street, being able to get up when it's dark and rainy outside, when you know you really have to be at work, and it's flexible, you have to be self-motivated to get yourself up, to get yourself started, right? It should be obvious, but it is something to point out. In remote work, you don't have those external motivations, right? You have to motivate yourself. And that's incredibly important as you think about remote work and where your motivation comes from. For some, the idea that they have to be there at 9 o'clock with a boss watching them, or accountability to your coworkers, that's their motivation. Okay. And if that's you, that's fine, but that might not be you might struggle with that as a remote worker. Curious. You have to be curious. You have to be curious how things work. You have to be curious about other people. We're not sitting next to someone building the small talk and relationships over time. So you have to reach out more to build relationships. You have to ask more questions. And that really stems from having a curious mindset. Self-reliant. If something goes wrong, you have to be able to feel comfortable trying to figure it out on your own and then reaching out to somebody to get help. Communicators, I already talked about that one. You have to be a good communicator to be a successful remote worker. And proactive problem solvers. Again, something comes up, that's on you to kind of figure out what's wrong, right? You can't just wait for it to get fixed. You got to get on the Slack channel. You got to, the other day I got locked out of my password was incorrect and I was locked out of a system and I had to track down the IT person. I didn't know we'd hired so many people since I'd been hired that I actually didn't know who the IT person was. And I'm pinging people on Slack kind of feeling like an idiot, but it's like, well, that's what I have to do. I can't just turn to the person next to me and say, hey, what are we supposed to do now? Right? So that's proactive problem solving. Now, this is a part, I don't know if any of you guys have read The Oatmeal before. One of the things I love about The Oatmeal, Seattle-based comic, he's just spot on with what he talks about. I hope you can read that right there. It's not all unicorn and rainbows. Basically, this comic is a reflection of what happens to your social skills sometimes if you're not around people. And it's not too far off. I mean, you're not gonna look at like that last panel there, but it's definitely as you get into the process, once the newness wears off of, oh, I'm working at home, I'm feeling good, it can feel really isolating at times. And so you mitigate that by joining co-working spaces. I go to meetups. I find community around me to make sure that I'm still connected, that I'm building professional relationships, and then I can shoot the shit with people, about what my workday looks like, because you start to miss that after a while if you don't have those built-in relationships. And so it's worth pointing out that there are times in remote work where you can feel isolated. You can feel maybe you're not getting heard or seen, your ideas maybe. I can tell you there are times when things are going on and I'm just not sure what's happened because a decision has been made and I wasn't part of that. Now, I'm not at a high level position. If you're in a high level position, previously I'd been remote at a high level position. It's a little bit different depending on what level of the organization that you're at and how your organization runs. If a company is fully distributed, meaning their whole team works remotely, then it's probably going to be better. But if you're joining an organization where you're one of a few remote workers and the rest are all centrally located in one headquarters, you are going to feel a little bit more left out of some of the things that are going on. And there's ways to fix that, by being proactive, asking questions, asking to be involved, and so on. But it's worth noting here. For some, it can feel difficult to move up as a remote worker. If you're on the fast track to career advancement, you want to make some serious goals in the next couple of years, I wouldn't recommend remote work. I think with the right organization, it would be good. But for your first remote job, maybe not the best idea. So some things to keep in mind. Again, remote work comes in all shapes and sizes. So there are going to be different experiences. There are some people who this social skills is not a problem because they're digital nomads and they're traveling around the world every 3 months, right? They're in a new country. And that's a very different experience than someone who maybe has a family and they're raising kids and, remote work fits their lifestyle, but they've also got other things to take care of. So again, it's going to be up to you, but I want you to be aware. You're going to, if you ever meet another remote worker and ask them, don't ask them just about the unicorn and rainbows, ask them about like what's hard about remote work. The other day I was talking to a guy at an event, again, getting out, talking to people. And he said, I get dressed every day. Every day I sit in front of my computer, I get fully dressed into my work clothes. And I thought that was super interesting because I do not, and it's part of that mindset for what works for you.